Oh boy, what are accommodations to me? So this is definitely one of those things, again, if you would ask this question 6 months ago, 6 weeks, 6 years ago, you got very, very different answers. Today, I would tell you, to me, accommodations are whatever I need to take me from my current state to my most productive state. Right? So that's going to be tools, technology, philosophies, perspectives, spirituality, supporters, take your pick. It doesn't, the point is, it's all of those things, right? Because it isn't just one little thing. And I, went through my whole life and living in, one world and frankly, ignorance, blissfully ignorant regarding all the accommodations that I have that allowed myself to go around, right? It was only after I left everything that I knew, that all of a sudden I tried to plug into the rest of the world without my accommodations, that I realized, holy shit, I don't fit in anywhere. I don't understand things, right? Like, I went from, in a place of going, okay, I get that I'm a little bit different, right? Or I process things differently, but still 4 out of 10 people kind of get me. Well, afterwards I was like, nah, it's more like 0 or 1 out of 10, right? And so I really understood the value of accommodations. In being able to allow me to do things, right? Like, I can't tell you how maddening I found it to be able to tackle and enjoy solving these complex problems. But I couldn't get anybody to pay me to compensate me for that knowledge because I couldn't concisely put it together on a PowerPoint. Right? So literally, the inability to properly use PowerPoint, was a huge stumbling block for me. Right? And so, there are so many things that people be like, well, that seems simple. Well, it might be simple to you. But you know what? Solving this complex problem might not seem simple to you. It seems simple to me, right? The point is, we all need different accommodations to make us to get us where we need to be. And so the accommodations have had such a negative word and such a negative connotation to it, right? That I have a great desire to strip that away and acknowledge that. And first of all, I'm even going to say that the first thing that I see anybody who gets any sort of money do is create accommodations for themselves, okay? Whether it be through the quality of the food that they eat, access to doctors and health care, private jets so they don't have to deal with everybody and all the stresses, right? Believe me, everybody has a set of accommodations. So the question let me take that back. Everybody needs accommodations. So the question becomes, why doesn't everybody receive their appropriate accommodations? Why is it that when I was an executive, it was all of my accommodations? Well, look at the amount of revenue they generate. Look at people would be happy to make excuses for me. But all of a sudden, once I became unemployed and I wasn't, and I didn't represent $1 billion marketing budget and these other things, all of a sudden, yeah, that same desire to be as accommodating, to take the time to understand, to hear me out, to make sure that they understood, right? Like, all of a sudden, it was literally like, I couldn't understand why I couldn't get anybody. I couldn't understand why. Well, first of all, it took me forever to recognize the fact that I struggled because I didn't have the accommodations. Then I had to. Then that led me down the path of understanding the science of you, which was, okay, I had these accommodations and I got along one way in life. I don't have those accommodations and I'm getting along another way, and it ain't nearly as fun. So, and I also don't have the money that I did. I don't have a company to help me provide all these accommodations for myself. So what am I going to do? Well, I better understand the science of myself to figure out what I need and why. Because anything besides feeling as good as I can, being as happy as I can be, isn't an option. When I left Quicken Loans, after 21 years, right, I never thought I'd leave the place. I don't think anybody thought I would leave for that matter either. It very much felt like a bitter divorce. Somebody who was very, very close to me, was the one who, him and I had these tough conversations about, hey, this isn't working for me, this isn't working for you, right? Afterwards, then somebody that I definitely had a lot of, I had anger, I had resentment, I had extremely critical and judgmental, very frustrated, very disheartened, very broken, quite frankly, right? Everything that I thought I believed in came tumbling down upon me in my mind, right? In the way that I understood things. And so, so now I look back and, and I had lunch with the same person, and I said, and I then got to a spot where I thanked him. I'm glad it was him, right? Look, in order for me to go on my journey in the way that I need to do what I need to do in my next chapter of life, it didn't involve me staying in that life anymore. And I wasn't willing to, up to that point in time, to do the tough things that I needed to do to fulfill on my purpose. And so the universe definitely provided provided that movement for me. And so I thanked my friend for being the one who did it, because then I know at least, look, a crappy thing had to get done, but at least I could have it done in a good situation and with a person that I trusted. But it still took me years to be able to unwind a lot of those emotions, right? And then I also wanted to make sure in talking with that person that they understood that I didn't have any ill will towards them, and I didn't want them to harbor any sort of guilt over anything either, right? I wanted to make sure they were released of that, right? And so now when I look back, my memory, I look at it from being very angry and all the stuff that was, my world came tumbling down, to really understanding how that's what was needed to be able to open the door for me to be able to do the stuff that I'm really meant to do. One piece of advice that I would go back and give myself would have been to be more open and vulnerable with some of my thoughts or questions, not with everybody obviously, but with just finding different people, because as I've been open about more of my curiosities, awkward curiosities, right? The more that I found commonality with people when I thought I would have been the outsider, right? All of these things I was afraid to bring up, because I would have felt like it would have ostracized me. Instead, it was what endeared me, with people, and so I guess what I'm saying is life's tough enough, and I sure as heck didn't make it any easier on myself by not accepting all the different helping hands that people offer me along the way. And so if there's anything that I can do that doesn't take away from anybody's learning, but helps prevent a lump or two along the way, then I think we're going to call it a victory. What I trust is that the universe the universe will support me when I am operating, being true and authentic to myself, and what I am, both being true and authentic to myself in terms of to myself, but also to what I want to accomplish while I'm here, right? And so in that respect, what I've trust is that if I stay out of the way, a lot better stuff happens for me. When I stay out of the way and I do and accept responsibility, what I can be in control of, right, which is my health, both physical health, mental health, spiritual health, emotional health, right? Then I open myself and to my sense of purpose. And if I act on my sense of purpose, and I allow myself to be open to hearing things through different people, right, through guides, whatever you want to call it, that I will be supported on my journey, right? And admit it, right, this is something that's a very new thing to me. This is not something I've led my whole life by, right? But what I can tell you is once I've started to lead my life this way more, it's become a lot more enjoyable. It's become a lot easier. I've enjoyed a lot more synchronicities, right? I remember just falling to my knees in my living room and just crying. I couldn't understand why it was so difficult to try to get somebody to help me my way. Just let me listen to me for a second, right? And then I just, look, why has this got to be so tough? Did I pray? I said, please let me just help me bring some good into this world. What is why is this so hard? And then I just felt like something kind of go pop in my head. I kid you not. And from that moment on, it was like some of the layers of myself, the mask that I've been wearing started to peel away, and I started to become more and more comfortable. I started to become more and more familiar with who I was underneath all these masks I chose to accumulate, and all these other things, right? I'm definitely not blaming anybody, right? It's what I chose to do to fit in. I just never realized the true toll that it took on me, right? And only in hindsight was I able to gain that wisdom. And so again, so that's what I'm talking to myself, kind of talking to myself through is, hey, you got to go through these journeys to navigate life. There is no, there is no to go directly past go collect $200 in life. If you want to learn, it's going to be experiential. But I, wouldn't have mind doing it with a few less lumps. During my walkabout, I'm exploring all kinds of healing modalities, right? And I'm open to everything, right? Something works for everybody. That's why it exists. If it didn't work for anyone, it would go away. Right? And so I started doing this chakra exercise. I guess it's focused on grounding, right? And as I opened up the workbook and I started going through it, I went, you got to be kidding me. So I went through these same questions in therapy. I went through these same questions with a Tony Robbins teacher. I went through these same questions with an executive coach. I'm like, everyone's peddling the same stuff, just packaged differently. I said, I'm driving myself nuts trying to figure out whose healing modality I should be following or who I should be listening to. I need to be spending my time and saying, okay, they're all saying the same thing. So what is it they're saying? What is the essence of it, right? That is what resonates with everybody. And that's what I need to pull from it. And then, whatever, I take what I need and I discard the rest, right? So in that respect, there's something to be learned from everyone and everything. And, yeah. Oh my goodness gracious, how is the way that I've changed, talk to myself and just talked in general, thought in general change? I went from a very raw, emotional, unfiltered, a lot of 4 letters were my favorite adjectives, and instead, it became much more understanding words matter. And if I want to take the perspective of law of attraction, words matter. If I want to think about it from manifesting things, if I want to think about it from the sense of would I allow somebody else to talk to me that way, any which way that I talked, that I read about stuff and thought about stuff, I said, there's a lot of value to these to the power of thoughts. And then as I started to allow myself to focus on thoughts of gratitude, right? Then I noticed how more gratitude manifests itself in my life. Right? I just happen to same experiences. I just happen to now appreciate them differently, right? And so it was very easy to adopt those perspectives that make you feel better. What's the relevant aspect of my journey that kind of led me to this podcast was just understanding just how, all the intricacies of myself and how it takes all these little pieces moving together to have it kind of feeling right, for lack of a better description. And, and so that led me down the path of saying, hey, I didn't have anybody kind of teaching me and helping me to understand these things. And so I'm simply sharing some of the things that if I was talking to me, what would I want to say? And I'm kind of taking that perspective and that approach. So one thing I'd love to have people say is, would people be saying about this, or myself would be saying, I never thought about that. Makes sense when you put it that way. That's a pretty good idea. I like that. Right? Like, that's what I'm hoping to get. And then from the listener, and then from, all right, understand the science of you. The last thing I'm trying to do is tell people this is what you go out and need to do, right? That this is the answer. The only answer is figuring it out for yourself, right? And so, and part of my work is creating a movement, but that is not by talking at people. That's simply by demonstrating that there are different ways, and if hurt people, heal people, right? So if we're all understanding the science of ourselves, that helps us to feel comfortable in our own skin, and we are just more authentically genuine, happier, and more productive people, nothing else needs to be done. Others will look and say, there's something going on over there, right? And there's nothing that's more powerful.